It's a recipe for my reputation as a leader because I'm wasting people's time, and people, they don't hate meetings. What they hate is wasting time. Ask the group to have an honest check-in around what worked that we want to build on for the next meeting, and just as importantly, if not more so, what do we need to do better? So we're doing a better job, because there's continuous improvement. That if we have this discipline at the meeting level, we begin sort of having that culture of continuous improvement everywhere.
Ready to shatter the status quo and unleash your leadership potential? Sick of the same old tired leadership advice? Well, get ready to disrupt your thinking and transform your leadership skills. Welcome to Sound Leadership with DJ, the podcast that's about to challenge everything you thought you knew about leadership. Join DJ as he dives into the trenches with industry trailblazers, exploring the real issues leaders face today. From innovative strategies to proven techniques, we'll uncover the secrets to taking your leadership from good to great. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped to conquer new heights. Join the movement, and let's redefine leadership together. This is Sound Leadership with DJ. Leadership redefined.
Every episode is a new adventure where we walk side by side with leaders who have achieved remarkable success. We trace their journey from humble beginnings to leadership prominence, uncovering the challenges they faced and the wisdom they've collected along the way. And today is no different. This episode is one I've been trying to record for just about a year. I know this gentleman, when he comes on board, he's going to talk about how long he's waited to get on this podcast. But we have him here today. Evan, a transformational leader who has made a significant impact as a managing partner and organizational change leader. He focuses on leadership development. Evan brings a wealth of experience and insights into transforming culture and collaborative leadership, offering invaluable perspective that promise to elevate you and your leadership practice. This is a conversation you will not want to miss. So join me, Dr. Kirk, as I talk candidly with CEOs, entrepreneurs, community influencers, and other leaders as they share their stories, their strategies, and pivotal moments that has defined their leadership journey. Whether you're refining your leadership skills or just starting out and starting to carve your leadership path, Sound Leadership with DJ promises enriching content tailored just for you. Now, I know what you're wondering. How do I stay engaged with Dr. Kirk? Well, I want to connect you. I want to connect with you. And you can do so by following and liking our podcast on all platforms. That includes LinkedIn, YouTube, and just about anywhere else you can listen to a podcast. We want you to stay in the loop. So follow us on iHeart, Alexa, Apple Music, and so much more. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. Now, let's prepare to embark on this leadership journey of empowerment and transformation. This is Sound Leadership with DJ. Welcome, Evan. How are you doing today?
I am good, Dr. Kirk. Thank you for having me. I've been waiting for a while to talk to you, and I'm trying to think, when I reached out to you, had you gotten your doctoral degree, or it might have been right when you had just gotten it?
No, so so this is 2026. You reached out to me. I think if I look at my records, it was April of 2025. And I said, look, I'm going through some changes here at the organization. The podcast has to be on hold. I'm obtaining my doctorate at the time. I said, but I promise you will be number one on the list. And here we are, almost a year later. I kept my word, number one on the list.
Well, congratulations on getting your doctorate. That's no small undertaking.
You know, it is something I want to do as a leader. I want to be at the pinnacle of my game. I want to be like you. I want to be someone that people looked up to and said, hey, that's a leader I want to look like and I want to be like. So, you know, I always start with, I did this introduction, but it holds no candle to who you are, right? I summed you up in 30 seconds. I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us who Evan is.
Well, you can look at my credentials on LinkedIn or anything like that, but I got out of business school. It was 1989. Went and worked for Merck, a large pharmaceutical company. They had a development program for MBAs. And they put me in a bunch of rotations like what I was doing. And then they just made up this job called the Director of Change, Leadership, and Development, which Dr. Kirk was honestly a fancy title for. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like 3 years out of business school. New CEO comes on board. He does an assessment of the organization. He's not happy. It's bureaucratic, siloed. People aren't collaborating. Somehow it rolls down to me to fix and get people to collaborate. And I'm like, fix it. I just got out of business school. I don't know how to do anything. So I did what any young, enterprising person does. I hired an outside consultant. And that's who I work for now. Schwartz & Associates. We're a tiny Denver-based consulting firm. And what we've done for 33 years is support small to medium-sized organizations and pieces of bigger organizations in cultural transformation.
That's amazing. And one of the things, you talk about the times and how times have changed, right? Because what you said is you hired an outside consultant. Nowadays, I just go straight to ChatGPT.
Yes, exactly. The consulting business, it may be short for life because they're probably just using ChatGPT to give their recommendations. So a lot of companies are going to cut out the middleman on this one.
Listen, and so, you have an MBA. Shout out to you. I have my MBA as well. How do you leverage your MBA to help organizations with transformational leadership?
Well, at a very practical level, we got to look what we do, right? We facilitate a lot of complex collaborative meetings, workshops, strategy, planning, process redesign meetings. And as part of our cultural interventions, then we would train the people, the change agents, in a style of leadership we call collaborative leadership, which at its essence is helping groups make better decisions and get people to buy in so they go implement it. Now, I go back, this is 89, right? When the CEO challenges me to figure out how to get people to collaborate, it's 1993. I don't have email yet, right? I mean, we're going back a ways, right? You don't go, I'm looking at your bio, you don't go back that far, but I don't have email till 94. So we designed a process to teach very senior people how to hold space so we get good collaboration and good ideas from everyone and make the right decision.
You're talking about 89, right? That's to be exact, 36 years ago. Not gonna say how I know that.
You must have the calculator there to run the numbers on that one, Dr. Kirk.
We'll go with that one. So 36 years ago, right before email, how has leadership changed with the addition of technology, right? Because to your point, right, he hired you. Well, he came in and said, "Look, I need you to make these change agents. Get people to work collaboratively." I can't imagine what that was like before technology. Do I dare say? I can't imagine. So.
Well, if you go back that far to a big company, the most important function from a communication standpoint was the mailroom. I mean, we used to write, emails, have them typed off, mimeograph, put in these little envelopes, sent around the world. So I don't have email yet. Now, so back then we're teaching people how to facilitate collaboration if we were sitting in a room together, right? And then we're doing that for decades. And then all of a sudden, WebEx, GoToMeeting, live meeting, these technologies, Skype come along, and clients start saying, Evan, we're not meeting in rooms anymore. We're on global teams. We're working around the world. We're not flying everywhere to have meetings. And so what we did is we started experimenting with teaching people how to facilitate collaboration on screens like we're on right now. Now, we just dabbled in that. When the pandemic hit, everything changed, right? Everything went hybrid, and for a year and a half, people were in lockdown. And so we started teaching people how to facilitate complex collaborative meetings using technology. So leadership hasn't changed all that much, but the platforms through which we have to lead have changed unbelievably over the course of those 33, 36 years, depending on how you're counting.
When we talk about change leadership and collaborative leadership, is this something that can truly be taught, or are leaders born? What is your take on it?
Well, it's interesting you say yes. The answer is yes, because we do teach them. But you and I probably have read a ton of books or articles on leadership in our career. And there's so many different ways to think about leadership. Now, one of the simplest ways is to think about our leadership on a continuum. where on one extreme, I could be an expert-based leader, right? And earlier in my career, I'm paid to develop expertise. If I'm a biologist, I'm developing biology experience. If I'm a, statistician, I'm developing statistical expertise. But as we're asked to lead others, we go from drawing on our expertise to having to draw on the power of other experts. And so one extreme of the continuum is I'm the expert. I decide for the group because I'm the smartest person on the screen in the room. That's one extreme. That's really presentation skills, right? Now, the other extreme, and this is where we're working, is even though I have strong opinions, let's say what the strategy should be, I am an expert in getting other experts to collaborate and remain neutral in ultimately what the strategy is. But I know how to get others to come together, come up with the right strategy, get them to buy in and implement. And that is the continuum. Now, in the real world, we're in the middle of the continuum, right? Of course, we have expertise to offer a group, but the real art of leadership is knowing how to enter from the side of the continuum where I start asking questions, remaining neutral before I tell a group what I think. Because if I'm the senior person, I don't know, Dr. Kirk, have you ever heard the agile term HIPPO decision making? It's an acronym. I don't know if you've ever heard HIPPO decision making.
I have not.
But here's the acronym. It stands for the highest paid person's opinion. It's the HIPPO, right? So it's often could be a middle-aged white guy like me.
There might
right?
be a reason why I haven't heard that yet.
Exactly, right? But and so it could be a middle-aged white guy like me. I'm the senior vice president. I come in, there's managers, there's directors. I'm a driving, fiery red style, quite intimidating. And if I start on the expert side with my opinion, I suppress conversation. So what we're trying to help people learn how to do is start by asking, even if I'm the senior person, the HIPPO, right, who's going to make the ultimate decision, I want to hear from people so I make the right decision. And that's really the art of leadership. And so really it's knowing, start from ask and only go to tell people what you think if they can't figure it out for themselves. And it is a real mindset shift because we're trained early in our careers as experts and we're paid because we have expertise to offer.
I think that's interesting. You use the term HIPPO, and I have never heard that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to run with that. So you mentioned the highest paid person in the room is often driving the bus, but to me, that's not really leadership. Leaders know when to step back and let others lead. Yes. They know how to effectively collaborate. Now, you've been doing this for, you said 36 years. I'm not just repeating what you said. So you've mentioned 36 years. So over the course of your years, is there some leadership styles that kind of rise to the top and some that kind of sink to the bottom that, improves collaboration and team building and trust?
Yeah. Well, I mean, great leaders know how to engage and build great leaders underneath them. But to do that, I need to know how to facilitate, how to engage and hold space for people. And that's what we teach. And it really is an art because, look, if I'm the expert and I decide for the group, there are some advantages and disadvantages. The advantages, I'm the expert, I decided, and I got my way. And it's a heck of a lot quicker because I didn't need to listen to the other 10 people on the call. But there's a huge trade-off and there's a huge disadvantage. I had 10 other smart people who I could have helped us make a better decision, come up with a better strategy, but I never tapped their brains, which means I'm going to sub-optimize decisions. I'm not tapping any of the diversity of the group, any of the creativity of the group. So I'm not going to make the best decision. And I'm certainly not going to get buy-in and ownership, right? That's why starting from expert is really ineffectual leadership. Now, the other side of the continuum, where I come in asking questions, if I've invited the right experts, and that's a big if, I've got to have the right people there. Even if I'm the HIPPO, the most senior person, it often we know can be the most junior person who may well be a person of color, who may well be introverted, who may well be speaking English as a second or third language, who has exactly the expertise to help me make a better decision. But if I don't know how to hold space so all those voices are heard, we're not going to make the best decision. And so the advantage of this style of leadership, we're going to make better decisions. We're going to get more buy-in and ownership. And the disadvantage, though, people say, Evan, it takes longer to ask a group to work it out for themselves. And I laugh and I say, yes, of course, in the beginning, to get 10 people to agree on anything is a minor leadership miracle. We're all dysfunctional human beings. But you're making the right decision, solving root causes. The group owns it. It gets implemented. It doesn't take longer. It actually goes faster, but it requires a lot more skill.
And skill that is. And when we talk about skill, what are the skills does an effective leader need to have to ensure collaboration? What are some of the key things you look for and you train on?
Well, we teach people many things, but there's 5 core things we're trying to teach people how to do. Now, the metaphor we might use for running a major project or program. Hippo? But we do HIPPO, all right? But there's another. I'm going to give you a few acronyms here as we go through this. A few small things for your listeners. But the metaphor of running a project, a workshop, a task force, a consulting engagement, a process improvement initiative is the metaphor of a plane flight. I'm in Denver. You're in Honolulu, if I have that correct.
Correct.
3 parts to that flight. If I'm coming to visit you, there's 3 parts. Takeoff, which doesn't take very much time. I was on a plane yesterday. It took 37 seconds from the time they hit the jets to wheels up. If it doesn't go well, we're all dead, right? Metaphorically. Now, most of the flight is going to be getting to Oahu, right? And Honolulu airspace. That's the second part, actually doing the work. The third part is on landing. So the 5 core things, the first of the 5 core things we teach, and it sounds so obvious, but it's another acronym. It's called the POPRA model, where the first P in POPRA is the purpose, because I've got to help people contextualize why we're here and everything around that. The second acronym letter is the O. It's the objectives for the meeting. And if I don't know why we're doing things, I don't know what we're doing, any flight plan will do, because the third part of that acronym is the process, which in a meeting is the agenda, but there are many different types of processes. So it's purpose, objectives, process, and then the roles, right? What's my role? What's the group's role? What's the decision maker's role? I have tactical role, scribe, timekeeper, and then there's the agreement. So this simple POPRA model, if all people do is make sure they don't hold meetings unclear why they're doing things, what they're doing, they're going to have a lot better meetings, because most meetings shouldn't be allowed to happen because there's no POPRA, if you will, and we just get on the call and we just bounce off other people's agendas.
Hey, did you hit that like button yet? That subscribe button yet? What if you didn't hit it? That's how I get views. I need the views. Sound Leadership with DJ invites you to like and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. If you haven't, hit that bell, hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified of every single episode that we host here on Sound Leadership with DJ. Have you done it yet? All right, now back to this episode.
Unnecessary bureaucracy, unnecessary reports, unnecessary policies, unnecessary approval levels, and unnecessary meetings. Now, many meetings are necessary, but there's so many that are unnecessary. And I don't know if you've ever read Patrick Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions of Teams by chance, but that book, his first book was Death by Meeting, and in that book there's a great quote. The hard truth is that when we run bad meetings, it almost always leads to bad decisions, which is a recipe for performance mediocrity. It's a recipe for productivity loss. It's a recipe for morale cratering, and it's a recipe for something else. If I'm the leader running all these awful meetings, it's a recipe for my reputation as a leader for being a bad leader, because I'm wasting people's time, and people, they don't hate meetings. What they hate is wasting time. And so it really, if we focus and intervene at the level of a high stakes meeting, we get right to the root cause of productivity loss in organizations. And that's where the culture forms, often in meetings, because that's where the values show up or don't show up. That's where major strategic decisions are made. And I don't know, Dr. Kirk, I've asked 2 questions to clients for over 33 years. The first one is, how many meetings are going to take place in your organization today? And that's going to depend, right? When I was at Merck, we had 70,000 people. They may have 200,000 meetings in a single day, right? Smaller companies are going to have less meetings. But the question that is independent of the scale or size of the organization I've asked, and I'm always stunned, is what's the average effectiveness of a typical meeting? 0 to 100% effectiveness. I would say 90% of the time I get a number that's 60% or lower. And I sit here with clients, I say, this is insane. It is the fundamental productivity issue. Organizations don't address it. Why they don't address it, I don't know. It costs organizations millions to not address it, but it is the root cause of the dysfunction of the cultures of most organizations. So yes, leaders ultimately create the culture of the organization. That is their job, and it starts in how they lead people, and people get led in meetings.
And, I think what you're saying and what I hear you saying, right? People are getting led in meetings, but are we having so many meetings because managers are afraid to delegate? Managers are afraid to empower the team to be successful because they're going to lose control? Is that why we have so many meetings?
Well, I mean, there's several reasons, right? One is we have a culture where we call a meeting when it could have been an email. Right? Or I could have sent a document out. I mean, and then we have a culture where, everyone uses the term, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. So we have these bad meetings. They're on the calendar, but I want to go to them in case something happens that I want to have my fingers on. So we've got bad meetings happening over and over. People are afraid of missing out, so they show up. But it comes back to the discipline of you shouldn't be allowed to have a meeting if you don't know why you're having a meeting and what you're trying to get done, right? And so that's one of the reasons we have all these bad meetings. And, the culture is going to, if we run all these horrible meetings, it just drains morale out of the organization. But it all starts with really one of the things we do with our clients is you should not be allowed to have a meeting if you can't answer for the group, the why, the what, show them an agenda, tell them their role there, and have some agreements for how you're going to interact. That's just the basic threshold for being allowed to have a meeting. And if you have that discipline culturally, you're going to get a lot of meetings moved off the books.
I agree. And when we talk about successful meetings, I operate as a project manager in some of the roles that I sit in. And one of the things I like to do is set the standard for why we're here. Yeah. We get on the call. We should know why we're here. We should understand what the agenda is. And routinely throughout, I've been trained. It's kind of burned into me by a previous leader to kind of follow up and ask follow-up questions throughout. Because so many times people are sitting on a meeting, their camera's off. Mm-hmm. They're not paying attention to me. No. They don't know what the action items are. and it's not really effective, right? So as I close out my meetings, I always say, how do I word it? I forget how I word, but ultimately, are there any questions or concerns that I can answer? Was everybody able to voice their opinion? And then I summarize what the action steps are. I do my best when it's over nowadays with AI to send a summary. It does it for you. To send a summary of the meeting. These are the action items. So when we come to the next meeting, it's already there. We know what the next meeting is. But I think sometimes as leaders, we fail to lead. We get on the call and it's just where it goes. And the plane doesn't take off.
Yeah. It doesn't take off well, so we crash on takeoff. The other place, to your point, we crash is on landing. So first of all, we're not realistic what can get done in a 1-hour meeting. So we jam-pack the agenda with way more things that were ever going to happen. And if we do that, there's going to be no space for collaboration because I'm just going to have to talk at the group. But the trap we get into at the end of the meeting is we don't leave time to land. And it is a discipline of landing because really at the end of the meeting, to your point, I want to make sure several things happen. One, if we put issues in some sort of parking lot, what are we going to do with them, right? We parked it. We got to have an action plan for that. We had objectives for the meeting. We need to make sure we're clear what we did get done, what we didn't get done, and then have a plan for how we address anything we didn't get done. And to your point, the most important thing is the group drops off the call crystal clear. Who's going to do what by when? Now, Copilot, these AIs, they do all the stuff, back when I was there, you had an admin sitting in the meeting doing it. Now,
but now you got to read. Yeah. It's still another task for people, and that's another email that they didn't do their first 49. Okay. Now this is 50.
Exactly. And I still have to close it out at a very tactical level with the group because if they don't get aligned around where we go from here, who's going to do what by when, then they snuck out of the meeting. And the other thing you have to do is just some basic continuous improvement, which is every meeting with a team working together over time, you should do a process check. Ask the group to have an honest check-in around what worked that we want to build on for the next meeting. And just as importantly, if not more so, what do we need to do better? So we're doing a better job, because there's continuous improvement. That if we have this discipline at the meeting level, we begin sort of having that culture of continuous improvement everywhere.
So one of the things you did is mention a self-eval. And I think a lot of leaders are afraid to have a self-eval. They're afraid to check in and see if they're effective. And I've seen it working with people. And that was one of the things I learned to do back during COVID when we were all sitting on a screen. I did a 360 self-evaluation, and mine were those answers. Some I knew. Some I was like, oh, okay, I think it's coming off one way, and the staff thinks it's coming off another way. Yes. It's important to self-reflect. Now, I want to talk about you personally. As a leader, how do you self-reflect? Because you spend time teaching leaders, but how do you check yourself to make sure you're effective?
Well, the first thing is when I run our program, right, teaching people this style of leadership, my partner and I have worked together for 20 years. The first thing we do when we're done is we give each other feedback. And that's what we're teaching people to do. So if we weren't to do it for ourselves, because to your point, one of the reasons we do 360 feedback is to close blind spots, right? We are sitting in our heads, or maybe right now watching myself on the screen, but I have no idea how things are landing. The people who know how things are landing are the participants, in our case, in the training or in a meeting we're running for a group. They can tell you the things that you need to know, because if you don't know it, you can't get better. So how I do that is I always want to get feedback from whatever meeting we run. I'll ask you when we're off camera here, what could I do better in the next podcast? Because that's how you get better. And if you don't ask for feedback, you'll never close blind spots. And that means you're not going to get better as a leader.
I appreciate that. And it's the same. Once we're off the podcast, I'm going to ask you, hey, what are your thoughts, right? I'm a little rusty. I'm back after a year. I'm a little rusty. I'm back after a year. But let's switch gears a little bit. I got some questions for you. And I always ask people this. I did it in season 2, and it was a hit. So one of my questions I'm going to ask you is, your organization, and it's just fill in the blank, right? Your organization doesn't have a culture problem. It has a blank problem.
I mean, I think it has a leadership problem, because the root cause of the culture is ineffectual leadership. And that's usually when we were brought in to work with organizations. The first thing we did with the CEO, or if it was a big division, the head of the division, was to contract with them, again, using that Popper model, getting clear why they wanted a consultant in there, what they were hoping to get done. We'd come up and design a process for how we would work with them. But really, we've got to make sure that the leader is aligned before we do anything. And you have a leadership problem. And most of the time when we get asked to come in, the leader's like, I don't like the way my team's working, which we know probably is an artifact of how they are leading, right? You wouldn't say that.
That goes back to that culture, right?
No, but
back to the culture that I called out.
And so the first thing we would always do is do a 360. We would go out, talk to everyone, sometimes focus groups, but generally we would just talk to their direct reports, their boss, their peers, gather data, and then we just put it in front of the group and anonymously and say, all right, this is what people are saying. You're probably not saying to each other, but this is what you told me. What do we need to focus on? Right? Because it's always comes down. An organization's culture will never shift more than the leader of that organization is able to shift themselves. They never will, right? Because their fears, right, are going to constrain the ability of the organization to grow. If they're afraid of delegating, right, then the organization is going to be dependent on them. And that's what expert leaders do. They create dependency, right, which in the beginning looks good until you start realizing every time I do things for people, they come back and say, all right, boss, Dr. Kirk, what do you want me to do next? And you could tell me. I'll go do it. All right, now what, Dr. Kirk? What do you want me to do next? And you're sitting there going, you figure it out. You know the vision. You know the objectives for the organization. Don't come to me with all this stuff unless it's something you really don't have the expertise. And that's really what a good leader does, is create an environment where people can step up and you really are able to have leadership everywhere in the organization. It doesn't just sit with me as the head of the organization.
I love that. And I love what you're doing for organizations. Evan, I don't know if you know, but we've been at it for 30 minutes.
No, you got to be kidding me. It feels like 5 minutes. I'm a little long-winded, right? So I go on.
No. We've been at it for 30 minutes. I say that because this is a great conversation. Now, as we draw this to a close, how can people reach you?
I'll be wearing the same shirt. You go to LinkedIn. There's actually 6 Evan Ungers. I'll be the one. I always wear this shirt so that people can be like, all right, that's the one, right? And on there, they can find our website. But, we teach people this art of leadership, and we run it as open enrollment programs where people can come, try it for their organization. But the truth of the matter is we don't really want to train trainings. What we want to do is use it as culture change. So we're always looking for people running groups doing agile or lean Six Sigma, people who are running projects, PMOs, people who are doing change work. We want to train that entire organization so it becomes a cultural intervention. So they can find me on LinkedIn. I'll be wearing a shirt that looks very similar to this one.
So for the people who can't see it, because some of this is in the car, it's a blue kind of checkered pattern style shirt.
So I'll have a goofy little grin in my LinkedIn page too. So you'll there's only 6 Evan Ungers. I'll be one of the older ones.
Liz, I love it. So one of the things we're doing for season 3, and you're the first one to do this. Last season I closed out with what animal what do you most resonate with? This season we're doing something a little different. You're going to start me off with the first question of my next podcast. So what is the first question I'm asking my next guest?
Well, I think a great question to ask someone is, what's the book that had a huge influence on your life, right? And if I were to answer that for myself, so I don't know if you've ever read Tao Te Ching, right, by Lao Tzu. It's an ancient book. It's been translated, right, because it wasn't in English. But it really, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's a book it's almost poetic, right? It's a little esoteric. It went something like this. The best leader is the one who, when the work is done, the people say, amazing. We did it all ourselves. It's incredible how great a leader you can be without imposing your will on the group, but you have to be trained to know how to do this. And most senior people are never trained. It takes time. But it is a art form that we would love your listeners to reach out to us. And, we often, for podcast member, we'll knock $2,000 off the price of an initial seat. If people want to give it a try, they can reach out to me.
You know what, Evan, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time for staying on top of me and taking time out of your day to chat with me all the way here in Hawaii. I really appreciate it. And, for what it's worth, man, this was a fabulous welcome back into season 3. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate it, Dr. Kirk. Thank you so much for having me.
And you know what? To the listeners who have been with me for forever, right? We're on season 3, some 60 episodes in. I want to thank you for embarking on this leadership journey with me at Sound Leadership with DJ. When I started, it was just Sound Leadership with DJ. Now I'm going to put Dr. Kirk in front of it. But I appreciate it. Today's episode has been filled with great insights, inspiration, and wisdom from Evan. If today's conversation sparked a new ideal, inspired action, or simply left you wanting more, we invite you to connect with us. We invite you to like us on all platforms that include LinkedIn, YouTube, Apple Music, iHeart, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Hit that like and subscribe button. Simply search Sound Leadership with DJ and hit that like and subscribe. Now, I want you to stay inspired. I want you to stay challenged, and I want you to stay informed. And as we part ways today, I want you to remember, leadership is a journey, not a destination. Keep striving to learn and grow and never give up on your goals. We're honored to be a part of your leadership journey and anticipate welcoming you here back for more enriching conversations and transformational insights. Until next time, keep leading, keep growing, and remember, with Sound Leadership with DJ, you're always in good company. Good night.
Thanks for tuning into Sound Leadership with DJ. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform. Share your favorite takeaways with a friend or colleague. Leave a review and let us know what you think. And remember, leadership is not just a title, it's a choice. Choose to lead with purpose, passion, and impact. See you on the